guys, welcome back to Release the Craftin. Priscilla here for another day of the Haunted Tales Challenge. That's hashtag Haunt Your Crafts, which is a collaborative challenge hosted by myself and my good buddy Belle over at Bella Blue Creations. All the relevant information will be linked below. There's a playlist. There's all the things. I always put it in the description box for you guys, so go check it out there. This is a celebration of Gothic literature hosted by Belle and we are going through some old Gothic tales and making some stuff inspired by it. And if you haven't seen yesterday's video where I did Carmilla, go check it out. It came out pretty good. I'm pretty happy despite the many obstacles that got there, and I'm very optimistic that I will only have a few obstacles and not nearly as many as I did before. So yeah, we're gonna jump into it. Today is day 2. It is the Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, and the tagline for this one, coined by Belle, of course, the brilliant Belle, is when you are oppressed, only madness can bring freedom. And yeah, we're gonna jump into it. So I think by now we've concluded I'm making one of those like flippity floppity envelope things to use up all my envelope books, all of my envelopes, period. Words are really hard. I am making a book out of envelopes, which is something I have done before and something I will continue to do now. So, to avoid the pitfalls of last time, I planned out what I was doing. And now I'm going to glue it together. Because as you can see, this opens up this way, which is the opposite of the way I wanted it to open, but it is the way it is. So I stuck this in here just to sort of give myself an idea. I'm going to have to pull it out so I can glue it in there. But that's where we're going to start. And I'm going to push this aside. We're going to start here. First page. Let's go. And like, do I have to do it this way? No, I could find other ways to like attach it to itself. But this is the way. So it is what we are going to be doing. So we're going to get some glue on here and stick this down. And you guys, we're gonna make it work this time. I'm determined to not have like the same crash out I had making this stuff for Carmilla. So like, despite all of the odds, and the odds were just me, I was the biggest odd, I did make something I was very happy with by the end of it. But oh my gosh, the journey to getting there was so frustrating. So hopefully you know, I can be spared that fate this time. Just slide on in there. Nope, see, we're already, I talked too much about bad luck and now I have done it to myself. No, we got it. The power of positivity. It's actually kind of funny because I am a pessimist by nature, honestly. But you know, like, I try to be a bright sider, but I'm always like, yeah, well, what did you expect? It was going to end up like this because it's just the way that I am built, okay? Oh, that's the obstacle we're facing. Oh no, I have to go fast because this glue is going to stick. So, whatchamacallit, but I have been like determined this year especially to be like delusionally positive more so than you guys might think possible. To the point where like I now have friends like commenting on it who are like, wow, you're just determined to like see the bright side no matter what. And I'm like, yes, yes I am. Oh, I'm gonna rip this trying to get it right because it already stuck. And that is the problem I am having. It's okay. We're going to make it work. Was there an easier way to do this? Probably. The easier way was to stick it in there and then apply glue, instead of applying the glue first and then hoping for the best afterwards. What you live and you learn. And sometimes you don't learn. But you do it anyways. Let's see. Okay. That should be adhesed sufficiently. And then I'm going to stick this part down because I'm not sticking anything else into this little flap. This part is going to be closed. So this is just going to be a flat panel side to introduce the yellow wallpaper, and then we will flip back this way and we'll have this side to work with. And in order to do that, we're going to stick some of these things to some of this, starting with this. And will I learn any lessons from the incident I just had? No. No, but that's okay. Because we're going on the outside, I don't have to stick it in there. It's fine. So yeah, at any rate, I've just been delusionally positive, even like the face of my own self-made obstacles. This is sticking to the other yellow. This is going to stick to this one. This away. And I think this last envelope is going to be the start of the next set. But I want to get this in here so that it's underneath everything and, like, you know, reinforced by whatever I put on top. And I thought about it because I was like, man, maybe I should get some, like, tape in between these edges here for these, like, folds, because they're going to get a lot of work. And why can I not say envelope? I don't understand what's happening. I've said it all my life. I haven't struggled this much. Envelope paper is typically a bit thinner, especially some of these. They're older, they're vintage, they're recycled from the rehab, and they might be a little bit more fragile than your typical envelopes or cardstock. But I thought about that and then was like, nah. So I could grab a roll of masking tape and just go to town reinforcing all my edges, and I probably should. I'm not going to because I don't want to. And it's as simple as that. But if you were that would be the thing I recommend to you. And then we're going to make this fold like this. So we're going to stick this in here. So this way, when we get to this page, we'll have a little booklet that, like, opens out. A little flippity flap fold there. Right? Pretty sure I did this right. Right, so we open. Should maybe get like a clip to keep Carmilla together. I'll think about that later. But then we'll have our introduction. Oh, and I'm getting glue on this because I have glue on my fingers. Oh my god! It's not that serious. It rubs off. And then we open this way, and then we'll have the rest of the yellow wallpaper. So we'll have this side to work with, and then this little flip out, and then, like I said, this is going to be part of the next set. And I haven't decided if I'm going to add something flippity here yet, or just stick this down. I could turn it into a pocket. That's also a possibility. So I got options. I got options, but at least this time I have everything in the direction I want it to be before I start doing stuff that makes me mad. So I talked about how I added some challenges to my challenge. So for the yellow wallpaper, the challenge that I gave myself for this one was acetate, because I'm still trying to get rid of it, and specimens and torn, which means tear some stuff. So that's what we got. And I got some things. First we need to get some of these panels. We need to get some decorations had. I got some ideas here. So let's talk about the yellow wallpaper. And like I said, for Carmilla and the others, I'm not going to spoil these stories necessarily, but I am going to tell you a fair bit. So if you haven't heard them and you want to hear them without the spoilages, come back. This video's not going anywhere. It'll be there. I have some scraps. I don't even know if I'm going to use these. I have this texture saved because I like it. And I think it's going to work great. I have this picture of a lady in death for funsies. What am I saying? I don't even know what the words are coming out of my mouth anymore. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the story, but I'm not going to spoil it because I don't want to ruin the story if you've never experienced it yourself. I have this, which I think will make brilliant wallpaper once it's yellow. And I have this because I want the arsenic label out of here. That's the only thing I want out of here. So before I distract myself with all the other cool things on here, I'm going to cut this out. I'm going to free it. Also, if this is your first time joining me, welcome. I have ADHD, so I am not going to tell you a linear story at all. The best we can hope for is that I remember everything I bring up, and then I come back to it eventually. But No linear stories here. But I want the arsenic. The arsenic is important, and I will explain why momentarily. And then I have this, because it's kind of a grungy yellow color, so I might be able to also use it as well. I don't know if it's going to get used, just that I might also use it. No, I will use it. I will use it. I have an idea. I have thoughts. I thought about this before. I had to plan this out before, because I can't just, like, plow my way through these. Because, like, the little bit of planning I did for Carmilla was not enough of the planning. It needed more of the planning. Okay, got my special components up there, there. We're all together now. The first thing I need to do, though, is yellow up this. How will I do that? With a distress ink. I got my yellows. So, I'm not going to spoil it for you. Something, blah, blah, blah. I'm checking to see if there's any color on my brush here before I begin. There's foil on my brush. Okay. Oh, I have antique linen too. Should I lead with that? Is this even juicy? I don't know. Welcome to the comedy hour. Oh, it is juicy. Are you juicy? Oh, it is. Okay, good. So let me start here. And chances are I will end up just referring to the, see how silver it is? It's all the, I'm just going to use the pad. That took about 6 seconds to decide. So at any rate, what am I talking about? Keep working while you think. I'm not going to spoil the story, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about the story and where I'm coming from with my motivations here. So essentially, this story is about being medically gaslit by a man. And this is actually a really interesting thing because Charlotte wrote it based on her own experiences and having to sort of be medically at the mercy of her husband while recovering from, like, just sort of kind of what sounds like a little run-in with depression. Like, she just wasn't feeling the fittest, and they would put women on sort of this rest treatment, which was basically like lay down and get over your problems while men tell you about yourself. And it was really dehumanizing. She really hated it. And essentially, you know, she lost all of her autonomy during this time. And so she, you know, she wrote something that sort of brought up her experiences with this treatment and what was happening to her. Because other women were also going through similar treatments and having to deal with that kind of thing. So in the story, the narrator, who is not named, interestingly, is sort of in this vacation home with her husband John and who they say is John's like sister, but she kind of acts as like a nurse, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in a second. But and it's basically for her to rest and recover from her illness. And they mention that there's a child involved, but you never see the child or like hear any details about said child that would lend itself any credibility in this process. Yellow wallpaper. So I don't know if that'll move anything around or blend anything together. It might have already stuck in here, but for the sake of posterity. So what I do have is this very vivid archival ink in sunflower yellow color, which I am going to use the brush for because it's archival and not distressed, so it'll just stick exactly where I set it down. So, you know, so she's not feeling her greatest, and she's trying to recover, and her husband is kind of like a doctor, I think. If I'm remembering correctly, he's kind of like a doctor. So he's, you know, treating her. I think he is a doctor because he's like the one responsible for her care. And because he's a doctor, he's like, I know it all. And everything that you're telling me doesn't matter because I have already decided and made up my mind. But they're keeping her in this room, which interestingly has, it's supposed to be like an old nursery, but there's like bars on the window and there's rings on the walls, and there's, the bed is like shackled to the floor. You know, it's not shackled to the floor, it's nailed to the floor. And they keep her in this room, and this room has this hideous, like, yellow wallpaper that at first seems pretty, like, innocuous, even though there's, like, a lot of patterning on it. And she, you know, she vocalizes her displeasure with the situation, with being stuck in this room. She just wants to go out, and she just wants to, you know, like, talk to people and socialize. And she's like, this is what I think will make me feel better. And every day she's, like, trying to explain this to her husband, who's like, no, you just need to sit in here and rest until you get over this, like, bullshit that you're on. And so, you know, while she's going in here, she's observing this wallpaper, and she starts to, like, see things, which is sort of a common phenomenon, and I'm pretty sure we've all sort of experienced it in some way, shape, or form, you know, where you're looking at something that has no, like, definitive pattern or shape, and then you start to see things in it where you're like, oh, that looks like a little, like, cat in the wall, or, like, you know, like you see a little thing in the bathroom tiles at, like, you know, the grocery store or something. I don't know how much time you spend in the grocery store bathroom. I'm just giving an example. You know, like, as a person who worked in the grocery store, I spent a fair few times going, oh, there's a cat right there on the wall. But, you know, it's sort of, it's pareidolia. You're seeing, like, faces and shapes in places where there's not, because your brain is really, really smart and really, really dumb, and it wants to make patterns where there are none, and it seeks patterns. So when it can't find a pattern, it starts to make up its own and be like, hey, this is something that you kind of vaguely recognize, which is how those things sort of come to the forefront. And it's not really like a big deal until you start to be left with those things all the time, and then it can cause some issues if you start to see faces and stuff all the time everywhere you go. It's just not something you want to have happen to you all the time. But, you know, every now and again seeing it, it's the same thing that we use to, like, see the shapes in the clouds. It's pattern recognition. It's your brain filling in gaps and being like, yeah, well, if you ignore the fact that it's a cloud, then you can absolutely see that it is, you know, a dragon fighting a wizard. That's definitely what you see. So, like, that's kind of the phenomenon that she's having. Words are going to be impossible today. They're not just really hard. They're going to be impossible. So, you know, the narrator's in here. She's starting to see things on the walls. And on top of that, she's not just seeing things on the walls. She's seeing a woman. And the woman is sort of, like, antagonizing her a little bit. She's a little bit distraught by this woman she's seeing in the walls. And, it's causing her a lot of grief, right? Like, it's really distressing her. And she's upset, understandably. And she's trying to, like, explain this to her husband, who's like, no, that's not what's happening here. You're crazy, and you just need to keep resting in this room that is causing you so much stress. And so, despite anyone's better judgment who is, you know, watching this from the outside, us outside observers who are all watching this being like, no, she needs to get out of there. You know, she's staying in this room, and every day she gets progressively worse. And, you know, she starts to, like, pick at the walls, and she starts to see, like, kisses, and there's a groove in the wall that, like, looks like somebody's been dragging their shoulder along it. And, you know, it gets upsetting the more time goes on, because, you know, like, if you're following the narrator's story, then you're like, hey, shit is happening to this woman, like, do something about it, help her out. And the whole time her husband's like, no, nope, nothing is wrong with anything, everything is fine, blah, blah, blah. And she just keeps getting worse and worse. And I'm not going to spoil the ending for you guys, but that's what we're working with here, is seeing a woman in the walls, being trapped in this room with this wallpaper that you start to see things in, and it's making you very upset, and you're not even that crazy until they make you feel crazy, and then all of a sudden you're very, very crazy. And that's what's happened. And the reason I wanted to bring in the arsenic bit is because there's another little bit of this, like, idea that is sort of historical in nature and its value is that they used to use arsenic in the walls, and if you are exposed to arsenic, you will have hallucinations and see visions and things like that. Not in the walls, but in the wallpaper specifically. Arsenic used to be made into a color called Scheele's green, and it's a very lovely green color. Actually, arsenic itself is green, so like you turn it into other green things. That's a no-brainer. It's very normal. 6 1/4, a 16th. I don't know how many 16ths that is off the top of my head. It's a 16th. So over time though, the arsenic in the wallpaper that they would use to color the wallpaper would degrade, because it's not like they sealed it in, put like a nice finish on top, had all the things that like we would have now. Not that we're putting arsenic in wallpapers now, but you know, like we have the tools now to sort of lock in the arsenic and make sure that it doesn't come out of the wallpaper, but they didn't have that back then. So what would happen is, I think this envelope is the same size, but for the sake of measuring twice and cutting once, we're just gonna measure. Although maybe it's a little, no, I think I'm just off with how I stuck it down. No, it is the actual 16th longer than it needed to be. So 6 3/8. So at any rate, over time, this arsenic would break down due to like humidity and moisture in the air, and like the dust. Fungus would form, mold would form, and then the arsenic would sort of leach out into the atmosphere. It'd get picked up in the dust, and you'd be breathing it in, and it would have all these horrible side effects. And too much arsenic exposure can cause death, but a little bit of arsenic exposure can cause madness. And the yellow wallpaper, well, not being green wallpaper, which would be the color that you would need, it's not a stretch to think that they used a little bit of green to get the color yellow that they had. That is a very normal thing. You get a very nice tone of yellow, adding a little bit of green to it. So it could have very possibly been that she was in a room full of arsenic wallpaper. We don't know. But the thing that we also don't know is who's reliable, because the interesting thing about the yellow wallpaper is that this is a really good example of the unreliable narrator. Because in the story, like with our narrator, the setup is weird. The setup is strange. You know, like why would this retrofitted nursery have bars, and why would the bed be bolted to the floor, like in this temporary little summer home vacation spot that they're staying at? Like why would all this stuff be there in the first place? And the way that Jenny treats her isn't like a family member. It's like a nurse. 5 3/8 and 7 1/8. 7 1/8. And, you know, John is a doctor, and he doesn't seem to be responding to her in the way that you think, like, a loving husband would. He's kind of responding to her in the cold, clinical way a doctor would. And, there's nothing in the story that says that this is the case, but it's kind of implied that she might be in a facility, actually, and not in her, like, little summer vacation home. That the groove that's in the wall, there's kisses on the walls, too. Like, those could all be from her. Our narrator, the hero of the story, could all be the person responsible for these things, and we just don't know. We don't know if she's telling the truth, if this is what's happening to her, if this is, you know, her lived experience, or if this is like a story that we're getting from a patient in a facility who doesn't really understand what they're going through. And so she sort of pieced together some of these things, calling John her husband, calling him Jenny the nurse her sister-in-law, you know, like trying to be like, this is what makes the most sense. You know, again, they mention that baby, and that baby doesn't become suddenly relevant, you know, like, it doesn't just pop up and they're like, here's the baby. It never comes into play. What am I, I'm saving that. That's what I'm doing. I need a couple more panels. Do I want to cut them before I color them? I mean, it doesn't matter, right? If I color them now or color them later. I'm trying to think because I have to make some cuts that will be beneficial to me going forward. Do I have enough of this? I don't think I do. I could use it together. Yeah. What am I talking about? I'm acting like I can't make this happen. Okay, ideas. Thoughts and feelings. So yeah, I really love this story because of the unreliable narrator, like, aspect of it. I like that we don't really know if our narrator is telling the truth. I like that you're kind of left at the end being like, well, what the hell just happened? Well, at the same time, being like, what the hell just happened? Because it just depends on what story you're getting. And when you're reading it, you might read it one way where, you know, this woman is being horribly treated and gaslit by everybody around her. And you might read it the other way where you're like, oh, well, this woman clearly needs assistance and she's in a facility and, you know, like, maybe she's getting the help she needs, maybe she isn't, but I am not the judge of said things. More just that, sorry, it's hard to measure and talk at the same time. More that I'm like the observer of what's happening to this woman, and I want to be sympathetic, while also 6 1/4 plus a 16th. This is gonna be impossible to talk about and do at the same time. 6 1/4 plus a 16th. Not too bad, not too bad. And then the other one was the proper 6 1/4, 3/16. Okay, so we have these two pieces, which are only a little tiny bit shy of the other measurement. So if I just cut this way to 4 1/4, then I can, or 4 1/2. That was the measurement. I can tear from there and have the right size on the size. Okay, so I want to forget everything I just said. I had to pause it to go do some stuff, which was mostly feed my cat because she was bugging the life out of me. But I want to give these some color. I want to get this paper out of here just so I don't accidentally color it. Because, like, I mean, this is nice and grungy looking, and this is also nice and grungy looking. Well, imagine if it was all yellow, and it was all yellow. I did get a fair bit of rest before I started this recording session, so I do feel fairly strong, fairly decent. I think mustard yellow is the way to go. I'm just gonna start there. I have fossilized amber and scattered straw if I need another layer of yellow color, and this first color was Wallpaper, just in case you guys are wondering. And I'm just gonna accept that I will be yellow fingered for a while. I should have done these first because I need these to be dry, or mostly dry, for the next part. But oh well, we'll work it out through the magic of editing or something along those lines. But yeah, I am being very careful to manage my energy levels, because, you know, I don't want to be exhausted every day I do this challenge. Come on now. And I don't just want to be exhausted, period, point blank, in general. I need a tool. Jeez, I just like became one with the mat so fast. And I have decided that another color is in fact necessary. You know what? Why not both? I heard you guys just being like, yeah, both. And if you didn't say yeah, both, well, it wasn't you that I heard, right? Obviously. So, yeah, so I'm trying to, like, you know, keep, like, a handle on my energy levels, because I don't know what's going on. Don't worry, I'm seeing doctors. Those are also things that are happening. But, like, yeah, it just seems to be, like, something with the way that summer here is in Texas. The summer allergies usually impact me sort of more than the rest of the year's allergies do, in a very, very negative way. And so after last year, I have learned a few things about how I react to summers here, which is just, yeah, I guess more evidence that I need to skedaddle and get out of this part of the world, because it is actively trying to murder me at all times. But I am working on it, on everything, to sort of see if I can get a solution that's workable so that I don't go down this summer too, because of goofy allergies. It's so goofy. But yeah, I wanna have, you know, somewhat of an awake disposition here. And you know what? Yeah. Just another layer of color, and I don't want to waste what's down here. Plus, I think, like, with the oxidization, it's just going to look a little bit more, I don't know, murky, grungy. Okay. So, that's that component accounted for. Being mindful of my time. I have a sinking feeling that these videos are all going to end up being ridiculously long, even though I'm like, I just want to keep it simple and not do anything. I'm doing something crazy. So I'm going to dry all of this stuff, and then we're going to move on to the next step. Okay, so these are still slightly damp. That will become useful in a moment. They're probably a little bit drier than they should be. I may have to re-wet. But the reason is because I'm going to use an embossing folder, a 3D embossing folder, and they just work better when it's slightly damp. So what I did was hit the big puddles of color so that those would be dry, so that I wasn't going to leave an impression of color into my thing. This is my favorite one. But, yes, that's what we're doing. And I don't know, the focus is going to be weird. It's always weird when I bring this up here. And I don't even know how, like, relevant it is to see me do the thing, but sometimes it just helps. So I'm going to do it this way. And I need to face them that way. And they might even be a little bit badly sized. So I'm going to just let the back a little bit. One, because I don't want to, like, super activate all the oxides on the front. And then, I need the bottom. And I can't remember if I'm supposed to do the top one too. Yes, I think so. But do it right. Okay. No. That's not quite it. Nope. No top one. Nope. Okay, I know the bottom one has to be there. You are on shenanigans. Just what's happening here? Why am I failing at this? It's because I'm on camera and I was like, I'm gonna do it and you guys aren't even blah, blah, blah. This is all of that talk is what led me here. Why won't you go under? Oh my god. Okay, okay. This one is slightly thinner. No, it just won't. That's so weird. I've never had this issue with this before, but fine. There we go. Gonna be like, see, stupid, you should have done it this way. You should have read the thing, even though I've always done it with that level. At any rate, we have impressions. Impressions have been made. We have impressions. So, only a couple more to go, which I'm gonna do off camera. Okay, so those are done. I forgot to flip it over for one of them, so I have debossed it instead of embossed it. So that's a failure I'll have to live with for the rest of my life. But in the meantime, while we're here, we're going to do our die cutting. So I don't have to drag this up again. I'm going to use my scraps. So I'd like to use them as much as possible to cut out some things I need. You'll recall one of my challenges is a specimen. So I have a specimen die. That hopefully is not going to do crazy things, but I am going to use a piece of tape because it's a very narrow strip. It's a very narrow margin for error. So why not help myself succeed? Ugh. There we go. And see how it didn't embarrass me this time? So I need 2 of these. So that's 1. And then we turn it around for 2. And I honestly, I didn't measure this before I started cutting all these things, so I was very concerned that I was not going to have a scrap of this paper big enough to cut this specimen card, and I am delighted that it came out so perfectly sized. So, get out of there, get out of there, and you get out of there. Okay, so that's that one. And then I have an all-in create die that I put somewhere. Oh, it's over here. And I'm gonna cut this one out. It's like a little notepaper card, and I just saw that there were little dudes in there that needed to be liberated. And then what I need to do is cut 2 of them out of this paper. But one needs to be this way, and then one needs to be the opposite, I believe, so that they line up. Or maybe no. At any rate, we'll figure it out together. And if I mess it up, then I mess it up. So be it, right? I don't even know if this is going to be... It's going to be very close. Very, very close in sizes. But I need a white side is essentially what... Oh no, I'm not just using a piece of tape as well. I need a white side and then a back side, essentially. And theoretically, I would also need a front side. Nope, I understand what I'm doing. I understand. I had to think about it. I need this side, this white piece, to be facing this way because I want it to be the back piece. And then I need a top piece. That's what I need. Because I'm going to sandwich it together. So, hopefully, there's enough of this paper to do too. Otherwise, I'll have to look for another sheet of a different paper. What is this? It's like a piece of acetate. Okay. So that's the back. Right? So it goes this way. Is there enough? Yes! Look at that. Oh my gosh. Brilliant. Crazy. Wonderful. Get out of my way. Wow. It's almost like I measured everything, but I didn't. But it's like the universe measured for me and said, girl, here you go. Here's a break after Carmilla. You suffered enough. Okay. So yeah, because we're going to make a little window with these as well. So yeah, like that. Cock-a-chow. Beautiful. Amazing. And a good use of scraps. So free that. Put that away. Yeah. So I only recently started looking at like All and Create stuff. I don't know if you guys have heard about this brand before. It is new to me. There's a creator here on YouTube that I watch. Her name is Vicky P. It's like Papa Yano, I believe is her name, as best as I can remember to pronounce it. But she is my influence here. Because she was using them on her things, and then I was like, oh, wait a minute now. Oh, this is just a random piece of acetate. I got really confused. Where's the package? It doesn't matter. I'll clean up after. So we have these. We got those. I need those. Those are all in the decoration section. This is backing. There's more decoration pieces. Sorry, I'm trying to like figure out where I'm at. I have somehow planned so well that I have no idea what's going on. It's a really strange occurrence. That's for the folder. That all goes together. Those are decorative. These are panels. Okay. These are unnecessary. Okay. And I guess I'm going to use brown to add to the grunge factor. It's already pretty grungy, but I think we could go lower or higher depending on your perception of grunge. That's tea dye. That might be too low or high. I don't know what the scale is anymore. Excuse vintage photo. I mean, no, because tea dye is kind of orangey. And I'm just realizing that these are still damp, so they are going to have to get dried before I stick them down. This wonky debossed ones. Just gonna be the odd man out. And I did think about like going back over the top to like, you know, pick out details and stuff, but I think I'm just gonna leave this here so it can sort of blend into the background. Because I don't think it needs to like stand out to give the vibe of yellowed wallpaper. Oh, and I didn't think I said it, but like the water is to keep the paper from getting all chewed up in there because the way that paper fires are, they're like a mesh. So when you put them under duress, they crack, they fray like this, you know, because they're all like this on top of each other. And then when you put them through stuff, they're like, ugh! And then you get like those frayed edges. So if you add the water, it'll like make those fibers, you know, relax a little so that they can handle like getting shaped differently. But then of course you don't want to soak it, because then you're going to end up with like pulp. You're going to end up with the base things as all the things start to separate and it gets too soft. So you don't want to like have a soaking wet piece of paper go through your, plus it won't hold its shape either. It'll be pulpy unless you leave it in there to dry. But you see like there's a little bit of cracking here, but there would be a lot of bit of cracking if I hadn't used any water. In fact, I think you can see it more on here too, because this piece was a little bit drier than the rest. This one can wait. Oh, well, I mean, I could do the sides. And yeah, this was a good pick. It's a nice warm brown, so it goes great with the yellow. Okay, so those are inked up. So what I'm going to do is dry those panels, and then I'm going to come back and start putting stuff together as soon as I stop inking this edge. I'm going to go do that. Okay, so yes, we shall return. Okay, so let's get these panels together so we can start looking at something, yeah? So, here, we need one of these guys. I have nothing else to talk about. I really don't have anything else to say. Weird. Oh, Storycraft came back. I don't know if you guys saw it. It did. Came back last week. And maybe this week. I don't really know what videos are scheduled to come out the week that this comes out. Or what day this is actually going up on. Saturday? I feel like this is a Saturday video. So who knows? Who knows anything about anybody's stuff and things and stuff and things? How is it I measured this and I still somehow measured wrong? You know? Was I not there when I measured this myself? It feels like I was not there when I measured this myself. But it's whatever. It could just be the weird, funky way that this envelope is folded over, too. This is like an entire 1/8 of an inch that seems off. That's unusual. Of course, at some point I'll go through and do the edges of everything. But not right now. Because I want to make some progress. Because I don't want to have to switch to speed up mode. Although I probably will. But this is actually a story that I had to read in high school. And then my read of it was a lot different in high school than it was as an adult when I came back to revisit the story. Because I read this in high school and was like, why did she just let her husband do that to her? Without, like, any context of, like, she had no other choice. You know, like, there wasn't a line. And I actually remember having that particular conversation with my teacher, who was like, I need you to understand that she had no other option. And I was like, well, I would have just left. And she's like, you can't leave. Because your husband controls everything. And I was like, no, that's ridiculous. So, yes, I have always been a militant feminist, but I've not always been a smart person. So, yeah, I was just missing the context, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. And what I just realized was that 2 of these are going to be fractionally shorter, or one of these is going to be fractionally shorter than the other by a 16th. One of these long panels is. The 2 short panels don't really matter because I'm going to trim them to size, but I think it's this one. Ah, yes. It is this one. Don't have anything interesting to say. But yeah, I just, like, I don't know. I couldn't understand back then why she wouldn't just get the fuck up and get out of there. And then, you know, of course, when I did finally understand the nuances of this situation, and read it again, I was like, John is a piece of shit. And that was my takeaway for the story for a very long time, until just recently, where I read it, you know, for the 3rd time because we were getting ready for this challenge, and it's a fairly easy, quick read. It's like a 40-minute audiobook, so it's not that much of a read. And I was like, is she lying? Is she lying? Is this a Shutter Island? Are we being Shutter Island before Shutter Island? Which I do believe we in fact are, the more that I consider it. So, you know, make of that what you will. Ooh, my foot. So yeah, no, I think it's interesting to see the different ways that, like, if you come back to stories after a while, like how your mind sort of interprets them and tells the story to you and what you take away from it and things like that. I think it's really interesting to do that. So, I mean, I do read a fair bit, and I do like to revisit things I have read previously, and I always just sort of enjoy that process of finding something I may have overlooked in the original read, or something that just didn't, like, hit the same way as it would have, you know, at the time, or, you know, like, just, like, the different ways that, like, I experiencing, because, you know, I wasn't the same person I was yesterday, so I might not be the same person, you know, listening to a story again, and I'll have different opinions, or different things will stand out as relevant. And I feel the same way about videos. So there's certain videos I watch that are, like, review videos and stuff like that, where after, you know, a certain amount of time, when I'm, like, just sort of scrolling for noise to put on in the background, I'll put those on again just to hear, like, the reviewer's take on something again. And I find myself being, like, delighted by, like, new jokes and things that I probably didn't pick up on the first time, but also just, like, whatchamadoodle, having different perspectives on things. Because sometimes I watch stuff, because I don't really care a lot of times about spoilers. If I have no intention of watching something, then I'm not going to watch it. So I don't care if I get spoiled on those things. I care if I'm going to watch it and then I get spoiled. That makes me irrationally angry. But if I have no intention of watching it and I watch the video explaining it, I'm not upset, you know, about spoilers. So, you know, I'll listen to it, and then, you know, even with, like, the spoiler aspect of it, sometimes I just go watch it because I'm like, that turned out to be, like, better rated or reviewed than I thought. Or, you know, turned out to be more something I thought I would enjoy than I originally anticipated, so I'm gonna go watch it now. And then after coming back to listen to their review again, and I've seen it, I'm like, hey, wait a minute. You know, because my perspective is different. I have more of an understanding of what's being talked about. But sometimes there's stuff that, like, you know, I have no familiarity with, so, like, listening to it again doesn't really change anything, but that's when I pick up, like, different jokes and things like that. And I'm like, okay, wow, that didn't make any sense to me before, but now I kind of understand it better, or I caught this joke that I missed the last time. But it's on stuff that, like, I knew about beforehand, like, videos I'd watched, you know, like, movies I had seen before, and then they reviewed, and I was like, I don't really agree with you on that. But then, you know, I come back to it, And I watch it again, and then I'm like, oh, you know what? Now that I have let this sort of marinate a bit, and I'm re-listening to your opinion on it, I kind of see where you're coming from and understand that. And my original, like, thought of, like, how dare you talk about my shiny new thing, doesn't normally stand, because I have developed a more complex opinion of it. So yeah, I mean, either way, videos or books, I think that you can sort of experience them differently like that, or get different understandings and takes over time, which is why it's kind of good to revisit some of this stuff, especially things I think like this, with like classic literature and things like that, because a lot of this stuff I remember having to read in school when I didn't care. You know, like, this was just sort of a task that I had to accomplish, and if there was like a fast way to get through it, I was using that way, right? Like, I was going to absolutely, oh wow, ooh, that almost like matches up beautifully. You know, like, I was just trying to get through it to get through it. Well, now here's the question. Well, you can't even tell because it's all scribbly scrabbly. I'm not gonna lose sleep over trying to make it match up perfectly. You know, so like my understanding of these sort of stories is different when I'm just trying to get through it and you know, accomplish a task to get a grade. Whereas if I'm just listening or watching to like enjoy something, then obviously my perception of that is going to be a lot different. Than it would have been back then. So like coming back to some of these things that I had to read. How did I miss the edge? Like obligatory read, obligatorily, that were obligations to read. You know, coming back to those and then reading them for enjoyment now and not because I'm trying to accomplish a task is, you know, it lends itself to like a different experience, and so I have a deeper understanding. And some of the things I find that I appreciate more now, that I'm not in school, you know, like stuff like this, I appreciate more. Some things I didn't appreciate reading again, like The Fountainhead. Fuck that story. Did not appreciate reading that again. I don't even understand why we read it the first time. Because it wasn't good. And philosophically was garbage. And I remember the teacher trying to explain to us that, you know, this was an important bit of literature and it was important to see different perspectives and sides. And I was like, honestly, anything else, anything else would have lent itself better than what you have given us to work with here. Torn. Challenge. Yeah, that's for real. You know, so it was just one of those things where I was like, honestly, you're on shenanigans, and I believe that someone should talk to you about it. And then I actually remember by the time we got to the end of the book, she was like, yeah, this was kind of awful. And then I was like, did you read it? You know, before you assigned it to us? Or did you just pluck it off the list of like, here's books to give high schoolers differing perspectives of, you know, like different worldviews, and you were like, that's good, this is good. Because at that point I was like, it feels like you've never read this. It feels like you've never read this and didn't know what you were putting us through, and then you put us through it and then told us it was for our own good, and on all accounts that was false and incorrect. So yeah, coming back and reading The Fountainhead as an adult, I was like, yeah, no, this still holds up. Your initial impression of this being garbage still holds up. So, F you, Ayn Rand, for just sort of being a dark spot on my literary life. And I don't want to hear nobody tell me nothing. Like, well, actually, I don't want no well actuallys. Because I think we had to read 2 of her books in high school, and it was bad. Brave New World was the other one we had to read. I don't know if Brave New World was her. I don't want to blame her for that. I don't care enough about this freaking fascist Nazi lady to go look it up and see if I have the right names for her things or not. Okay. So it only took like an hour to get the bases down and dusted, but that's a start. And we've got torn accomplished. Why aren't you stuck? Or is it just paper warping and I'm reading it as not stuck? It's just paper warping. Okay. Da-da, da-da. This might be a problem. I may have to trim this on the little paper trimmer, which is fine, because it's not folding. So let's do that now, while I'm thinking about it, while we're looking at it together. Just dropped the big paper trimmer on my foot. Oh, come on. Maybe I should have used the big paper trimmer. It's fine. The line is there. I know where to cut. Don't fall off the table. We're standing. I don't want to bend that far down. It's because it's still like a little damp from the glues. It is also a fairly thick piece of paper. So, does it fold? It folds now. Is this sticking out? No, it's just warped paper that I'm making a mountain out of. Okay. So yes, now it folds. So we will glue it shut because I don't need this to be a pocket. I thought about it with, I mean, I could leave it open to be a pocket. That wouldn't really affect anything. But I thought about it with the Carmilla ones. I mean, lots of places to like tuck stuff in and be pockets. And then I was like, what are you doing this for? Just to have some cool ephemera on the page. Yeah, for sure. But, it could have just been glued down. It didn't need to be pockets. Now I have lots of pockets. But I guess there's nothing wrong with having pockets. Okay. Good here. This is the start of the next set. Don't worry about that guy. Front page. Booklet. Hi, Nico. So, I've got to address this guy and pet my cat. Hello. What's up, babe? So, yeah, I think for the sake of not being here for 11 bajillion hours, we're going to have to flip into speed up mode and start decorating this guy up. So, yeah, one moment. Okay, so I'm back. It's been a couple of days since I recorded this, of course, because why would I do anything in a reasonable order so that everything was fresh in my mind when I go do the voiceover? Why would I do that? It's so crazy. It's like so random and wild and kooky of me. At any rate, I have accessed the internet at some point, and John is a physician. He is actually the doctor. I don't know why I was so doubtful on that. I think I talked myself out of it. The thing that I was trying to remember is the rest cure. That is what is being prescribed here to the narrator. It's also what Charlotte Perkins Gilman got prescribed to her when she was feeling down and out, was the rest cure for temporary nervous depression, which is along the lines of hysteria in medical diagnoses. Especially diagnoses that they would give to women in order to gaslight women for anything. If you don't know, they used to prescribe or diagnose women with hysteria before they would send them to sanatoriums or asylums, and a lot of the times it was like the way that men would get rid of their wives is they'd be like, hey doctor, don't you think my wife is hysterical? And they would be like, yeah, as a matter of fact we would, which leads to a very dark portion of medical history, because especially like around the time the lobotomies were taking off, that's a wild ride to go on to. If you have ever wanted to learn the history of lobotomies, I would recommend the Dollop or Behind the Bastards podcast. Both of them talk about the guy who invented the lobotomy and how batshit crazy he was. Because he absolutely was. But it was literally like a thing. All you had to do was get the doctor to say that your wife was hysterical. You could ship her away. And in some cases, especially once the lobotomy became popularized, he was like, how about a nice lobotomy for the missus? And yeah, a lot of women were permanently like handicapped and disfigured because of shitty diagnoses like these by men. So thanks, guys. On a lighter note, I don't know why I decided to start this recording by telling you the most depressing historical fact I could think of in the moment. I watched a student production. It looks like a student production. It could be a professional production. It looks like a independent student film type thing, you know, like somebody's college project for film studies or whatever, where they did an adaptation of the Yellow Wallpaper. I could have probably looked up to see if they were students. I'm just assuming it was a student production because, well, I've seen a lot of them and it kind of looked like one. And if I remember, I'll link it down below. It's a very like abbreviated version of the story, but I thought that they did a really good job of like capturing the narrative here and telling the whole story of what's going on. Oh, now that I'm looking at the video actually and not just talking into the ether, I see I have one of those acetates. You guys ask me this every time I use these printed acetates. These are the Recollections acetates that they come out with for Halloween. They change them up every year, so you have to get them every year. I can't tell you which one is which because I don't know, and I don't feel like digging up the packaging to see what the year on the back is or the front is or whatever is. They change them every year, so the designs aren't always the same. Sometimes there's stuff that's like similar. Usually it's the body parts, but the inside is generally different. So if you like these, you think they're cool, they come out every Halloween with them. What I was going to say, because some of you guys might be like, questionable as to why you keep using imagery of skulls and death in this story that does not feature skulls. And I'm telling you guys, or the character of death, because I use the character of death, it's because they're cool. That is about 90% of my logic here is that they are, in fact, very cool. But also, I started thinking here about the dread that comes with death. One of my many fears is the fear of death. And I was thinking about like what I would think about if I was stuck in a room where I had to look at a wallpaper every day and the wallpaper had shapes and, you know, like where my mind would go if I was trapped in a room every day. And that's right exactly where it would go. So in my brain, in my logic tree of associations and stuff, I figured that death would be kind of like a constant companion in a place like that, especially when you're sort of slowly descending into madness, and it's the end goal for all of us, right? We're all getting there. Again, being so chipper in this this series, in this video in particular, but you know, like, it would be a lot closer to the surface in a place like that where you have no other escape or outlet, and this is your everyday until basically you die or your husband says that you're free to go and go back to your regular life. And so I thought that was like one thing. I think also the dread that sort of comes with the feeling of death being nearby or death being present in your mind is like another aspect of it. But also that death would be like your only companion in a place like that. You know, who else are you talking to? The dead, because they're the only ones who can hear you at this point. And probably way better listeners than your piece of shit husband, because fuck John. That is the theme of the story. It's actually the theme of a lot of these old stories is fuck that guy. That guy sinks. And Yeah. In this story, fuck John. What a piece of shit. So, I have this series of these photos that are actually of like an old-timey actress from way back when. And it was a series of them that came, like all together. This is in like the giant colossal kit. I think I have it up on my Patreon for purchase. It's also a member reward, but it was like 50 pages of like stage and screen actors and their photos, like usually the stuff that they would have on cabinet cards. I found them all. I put them together in a giant kit of 50 pages of different images. That's not even the point of what I'm talking about now. But in the series of these photos, she has like one very like pleasant smiling photo, and then she has one that's like a little bit like apprehensive looking, a little bit concerned, and then another one where she looks like just bored and over it, and like just sort of tired of putting up with shit. And I thought that would be like a good way to sort of show the character's breakdown as time goes on in the room with the yellow wallpaper. That we, would get like a good range of her emotions. Because I think at first, she's a generally okay woman who's just sort of having a rough patch. And, as time goes on, she's getting bored in this room. It's exhausting. Nothing's happening. And then by the end of it, she's getting a little bit concerned. Things are not as they appear. She can't trust what she sees, and then she's getting a little bit nervous. So that was where I was sort of thinking with these, like this series of photos. And then like putting her in the specimen, I think from the photo frame to the specimen was sort of the transition from her being like, the wife and the woman of the house to just sort of a medical object to be studied and observed in this space. I think that's what turns her into the specimen as time goes on. So that's kind of where my brain was when doing this. And then I thought about this panel here, which is this like, I don't know, like torn out page of a planner type cutout, where I'm putting the acetate over the skull, hold on, words are really hard, where I'm putting the lady who's printed on vellum, although it doesn't matter by the time it gets into this thing, because I put the white behind it, you can't even tell it's vellum. It doesn't matter, I printed it on vellum for the funsies. And more to see how my new printer handles printing on vellum. Neither here nor there. But I'm putting her behind the skull and sort of in this yellow backdrop to sort of have her take the place of the woman in the wallpaper. And, having death be her, like, overlay, being her constant companion makes her a little bit more spiritual, ephemeral, a little bit mystical here in the things, and she could just be a reflection of the like narrator, or she could be the actual woman trapped in the wallpaper. I don't know. That's just how she is here. So that's sort of my thought process here. I was being very intentional with the way that I was choosing to put these pieces down, which also made me take a bajillion years to do this because I was really overthinking it, because I wanted to tell a story on the pages, because I actually really, really like the yellow wallpaper. It's one of my favorites. Not to say I didn't like Carmilla. I like it just fine. I have my gripes with it, but I wanted to tell more of the story, I guess, in this one, because I feel more closely to it as a person who has chronic illnesses and is often medically gaslit. Not even just by medical professionals, but like just by people I exist around in my day-to-day life. I even have like friends who, trust me, you guys were not that close, but I have friends who just don't understand and choose not to understand what it's like having a chronic illness, and sort of downplay like the effects, or remove themselves from conversation so that they don't have to deal with the fact that I have an illness because they can't see it. And that's, so one of those things I think that just makes this story sort of hit a little bit harder for me is living with a chronic illness every day, and, going to doctor's appointments. And if anytime I have to see a new doctor, I have to convince that doctor that I am ill as well as my previous doctor, who I already convinced, hence why I am seeing this new doctor. But because, a lot of chronic illnesses are invisible invisible, you then have to go through the whole, like, I swear I'm really sick, let me just explain it to you, and please believe me, and don't try to tell me that it's not what I think it is. And, you know, it's just one of those things where I think, being of the lady persuasion, a lot of us get our issues and illnesses sort of downplayed or ignored by the medical industry in a way that's very, very upsetting, and it's very, very hard to find medical professionals who are willing to hear you out completely, which is why it takes women a lot longer to get diagnoses than men do. So yeah, I feel strongly about it. I'm not going to go into like a full rant about it, but it is why I really like the yellow wallpaper. And I did see that there was like a full feature film somebody did for it not that long ago even. I haven't watched it. It came out in 2021 according to IMDb. I'm looking at it right now. It looks dope. But I haven't seen it. So yeah, I might have to look that up just to see what's going on there, because that seems cool. It's one of the few on this list that have a movie adaptation. I know I talked about the movie adaptation for Carmilla. I can't think of anything else that is, like, off the top of my head, a movie film adaptation for her. The Picture of Dorian Gray has a couple of adaptations. Both are equally good in their own way. One has Ben Barnes, and then the older one is probably the more faithful adaptation, but also, I think, creepier than the more modern day one. I don't think The Eyes has a movie version. Rebecca does have a movie version. We even did it as a stage play when I was in high school, which I'll talk about when I get there. And obviously Frankenstein has multiple film adaptations. Although I will say, none of them are accurate to the book. So, you know, do with that what you will. Some of them take bits and pieces. I would say most of the Frankenstein films are inspired by Frankenstein. None of them are proper adaptations. So do with that what you will. Oh, and then I decided to get, like, cheeky, I guess, with my pages. I don't know why. I guess maybe because I just connected with this one so much that I was like, this needs a bit of cheek. So I added in a couple of word strips here. I used Girl Interrupted here because I love that movie. In a way that I probably shouldn't, because I watched it as a preteen and was like, well, I'm going to make this my personality for now, but also where I first discovered Angelina Jolie and began my lifelong obsession with her. So thank you for introducing me to a goddess on Earth. But I thought it would be a nice nod to the film, because it deals with some of the same sort of themes, but also just kind of funny, because she is a girl interrupted in her day-to-day life and mentally in her stability, and, you know, so it's on the nose, but it made me laugh. It gave me a bit of a chuckle. Oh, and here's right here, you see where I got my finger all up in the seam? That's where I ripped that seam. So yeah, when I was like, oh, you don't have to reinforce these if you don't want to, you should. You absolutely should, because so far I've torn 2 of them just by being careless. So you really should. Or do it with newer envelopes, because, yeah, all mine are, like I said, are old, so they are definitely very worn down. But to keep in mind, if you are doing it with newer envelopes, they're going to be sturdy now, but they will eventually break down. So give them a reinforce. A little washi tape or something in there, and it doesn't have to be anything super complex. So yeah, so now I'm just, like, building things up, doing the layering. Oh, I was going to say, I went and added the, like, brown smudge to show that, like, there's some rot in these walls, you know, like, not everything is nice and pristine as it seems. I know some of these walls are a little bit grungier than the other walls, but there are some nice walls in here. So, you know, I left some of them intact, but I wanted it to be like, see, there's a rot here beneath the surface. It's not as cool as it all seems. And then on this one, oh yeah, I used my little word stamps, which always bring me delight and joy. More delight and joy would be had if you could see me doing it. I didn't realize I was off frame, so sorry for that, guys. I'm using a ruler to keep it level. That's what I was going to say was the delightful part, because it came out fairly even, which is a good thing for me because usually when I use these stamps, my lettering goes all over the place. But in this case, I managed to get a pretty even stamped out word there, and more so, I made a nod to one of my favorite properties on the planet, which is Buffy. Bored Now is a line from Buffy. It's a line that Willow says. And so, again, in the desire to be cheeky, but also make a fairly relevant callback to somebody dealing with an illness and getting gaslit about it, we have Willow. And it's actually kind of funny. I, in the course of this year, I've been making it a point to get to know the people that I talk to, and I have been talking to Belle more and have discovered that Belle, like me, loves Buffy. And so we have talked in depth about that quite a bit. So I guess this is more a nod from Willow and Buffy to just Belle in general, because I'm co-hosting this with her, and I'm very happy to be doing so, and she's a delightful person. So if you haven't already, go check out her channel, see what she's doing. She makes cool spooky stuff and cool spooky things. And one of the things I find very delightful is that Belle and I have a lot in common, like in the old ticker, but we have very different executions for things. So even just for the last challenge, there was some stuff that was like overlaid a bit, and some of you guys saw it because you came to tell me about it, how Belle did something similar to me, but we maybe did it for different prompts, or we did it the same thing on the same day but with different executions. So like it's really nice to like have a friend who is so like-minded but also their own individual person, so that, you know, you get different interpretations of the same idea. I really enjoy that. It's one of the fun things about being friends with Belle, is knowing that we have very similar minds that go in very different directions. It's also a delight. In fact, I just love my friends in general. I would honestly just sit here and hype up my friends forever. Because that is the type of person I am. I love to hype my friends up. So while I'm hyping people up, let's all gas up Amethyst Raven. That's Tiff, because she's also my bestie. And let's go ahead and gas up Lori at Petey Pie Designs. Who else we need? Let's gas up April at Pink Oddbird. That's my homie. That's my OG friend. In fact, let's just gas up everybody in this community, because you guys are amazing. You're so cool and crazy, sexy, cool, so fun to be around. You know, you got Audrey at Odds and Ends. You got Mystic Dawn Art. Those are cool people. Some of them I only recently met. Not Audrey. I've known Audrey for a bit. But I only met Mystic Dawn Art recently, and she's cool. I love cool people. I love this community. I just love, like, how positive the vibes are. I know that, like, I've done a good job cultivating, like, my own personal community here on YouTube, because the comments are always a cool place. You guys always have nice things to say. It's been a long time since I've got a bunch of hate comments. I expect more to come. They're my favorite things to fight about on the internet. I just kind of love it. But, you know, it's been a minute since I've had a proper hate comment, and I just want to say thank you to guys for that, because it wouldn't be like this if it wasn't for your amazing selves. So yeah, I love that. I love that for you. I love that for me. Oh, here's a little nod to the end of the book. No spoilers, just a nod. I made the last page an homage to the ending. But yeah, you guys are cool. You guys are awesome. Make sure that you check out Belle's channel so that you can see what she made for today's prompt. Check out the hashtag, that's Haunt Your Crafts. See what everybody else made for this prompt. I will be linking the playlist, all the relevant stuff in the description below. You can see who's participating on YouTube, because I'll put their videos into the playlist as well. And, yeah, let me know what you guys think. And then come back tomorrow and see what we do for day 3 of this 7-day Haunted Tales challenge. I'm hoping that I can make the videos a little bit shorter, a little succincter going forward, because this is a very long video. So if you made it to the end, I appreciate your face. Thanks for hanging in with me. Double hypes for you. And that's going to be it for me, guys. For now, I will catch you all in the next one. Until then, happy crafting and goodbye.